What's going on, draft fans? Welcome to Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast. It's the live edition of the show. I am Russell Brown. With me, DP Damian Parson, my man. How are we doing, brother?
Hey, man, it's football season. College football starts today, week 0. We have a couple good games on today. Shout out to the HBCU schools that they're highlighting on ESPN. I love to see it. And but then, of course, next week is like really the meat and potatoes of where it really starts. But I'm just excited to see some pads, hit some pads popping, see some touchdowns thrown and ran. I'm excited, bro.
Yeah, man, it's a relatively decent slate for week 0. I mean, we've got Illinois, Nebraska, so some Big Ten play there. Hawaii, UCLA this afternoon around 3:30, 4 o'clock, so that should be a good game. I think we've even got Fresno State and UConn. UConn's playing their first game since 2019, so they didn't play last year. I have no idea who's even on that team. I'm not even going to lie. So I have no notes on UConn. I do have a player for Fresno State that we can talk about, but that's going to be, I think, a game later tonight. I think it goes off around 9 or 10. So that's kind of that AKA Pac-12 after dark that everybody likes to say. We got a little Mountain West after dark out there. So it's going to be a great day of college football. Like you said, pads are going to be going, and it's just great to be back. Obviously, next week is going to be a hell of a show for us, as there's going to be tons of prospects to get into. So it's going to be really cool. Obviously, you guys can comment in the chat if you chat with us. Any questions you have as far as prospects, today's games, next week games, even the NFL, feel free to drop them in here. And if it's directed to one person, just shout out their name and we'll get it in here. But today's show brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the most innovative platform in the fantasy market. So look, fantasy football is here. Fantasy sports are here. I got to draft my fantasy football team on Monday night, 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I'm going to be using Underdog Fantasy. So you guys can check them out on Twitter at Underdog Fantasy, or you can go to their website, underdogfantasy.com. If you use the promo code COVER1, you're a new user, you receive a free $25. You don't have to deposit anything. You get a free $25 with the promo code COVER1. So with the COVER1 promo code, you get the $25. You got your fantasy draft all taken care of, daily fantasy, whatever it is. So it's awesome. I mean, it's an awesome site. Great stuff from our guys out there like Hayden Winks and Josh Norris, a great group of guys in general. So check it out, Underdog Fantasy, promo code COVER1 for a free $25. So let's get into it. We got week 0. We're going to start there. If we have any extra time, we're only going 30, 40 minutes today. If we have any extra time, we'll get into some of our favorite prospects. And of course, like I said, any questions you guys have for us. But the first game, Illinois versus Nebraska, the biggest game, I think, on the agenda today, just because it's a conference matchup, and it's probably, in my opinion, got some of the more prospect-ready players from an offensive and defensive perspective. I know you got a couple of names here to watch, so let's kick it off with you. Who's the first player to watch in Illinois versus Nebraska?
We know how much fanfare the quarterback position commands, and I'm sticking with the quarterback position for Nebraska. Adrian Martinez, 6'2", I think he fluctuates between 212 and 220. 3-time, consecutive years, 2019, 2020, as well as this year as the team captain. He's the first ever, I think, for the school history to be selected as a team captain 3 straight years. For 3 straight seasons, he's rushed for 500 yards or more. He's only passed, he's only surpassed 2,000 yards passing just once. Kind of an inconsistent passer. When I watch him, he's a dual threat. He's dynamic. He's strong, powerful. Has some elusiveness in open field to make guys miss. And he has a good arm. It's not like he's a bad passer, but like I said, he's inconsistent. Consistency evades him, like Barry Sanders versus the Patriots back in the 90s. Like, it's just that's the thing for me, is just if he can kind of hone in and not just, I always like to say, not just locate or find consistency, but maintain it, grab a hold of it, and that you can really see him as a riser in the coming draft, because the dual threat quarterback is the new wave. It is the standard now. Yeah, you had the Mac Jones and some of the other guys who are just kind of more statuesque per se, but teams are looking for guys that can make plays happen when things break down and when things aren't drawn up, or they aren't executed the way that the play was drawn up. So I'm looking at Adrian Martinez, and this is pretty much his I think this is last season, supposedly his last season in school.
Yeah.
So this is his first shot to kind of let everybody know I'm a different quarterback in 2021.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. I mean, I'm not his biggest fan. I think there's definitely, like you kind of honed in on, there's a lot of things that he can do with his game to improve. But there is a skill set that is intriguing. I think his mobility by far, like you mentioned, is probably his best skill set, his best asset as a quarterback. But there's plenty of teams out there that I think value guys like this. You're going to need a camp arm. I mean, you look at the Detroit Lions, for example. I mean, they've got Tim Boyle, David Blau, a ton of backup quarterbacks going through the preseason. And it's becoming a trend, I think, in the NFL where you don't see the starters really playing as much, especially with only 3 preseason games. And now you really get 2 weeks to get ready for that opening week of the NFL. So Adrian Martinez, whether, this is his last year or not, like you said, I think it is. So if he goes to the NFL next year and he's with the team, I mean, he could see extended work through the month of August for a team. And it might be multiple teams. Again, we see so many times where a guy goes from one team to another because they get cut or dealt. So I'm definitely intrigued by him. And I think between the two quarterbacks, he's probably got the most true talent as far as a quarterback goes. I mean, I think he's better than Brandon Peters. And I don't even know if Brandon Peters is still with Illinois. I think so, but I feel like part of me, I feel like he transferred, so I probably should have checked that. But the player for me, and you can see it on the screen here, we'll be doing this on every single player or every team. Casey Rogers, the defensive tackle. This kid, 6'5", 295. Every time I was watching the Nebraska defense over the week, this kid just jumped out to me. He didn't start a lot. He only had 1 start last year, but he played in every game. He had 25 tackles. He had 3 or 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. And the big thing was I just noticed like his length consistently popping up where he's putting his hands up. He's blocking passes. He's deflecting passes. And his size, he was very impressive in the middle of that defense. He was clogging gaps. And I thought he did relatively well with his block recognition overall. It could be a little bit faster. There was definitely times he was getting reached and it wasn't great. But at the same time, like I said, I mean, he was filling up things and he was strong against the point of attack. I mean, that was what was key to me. So at that frame, I think you can play him in a multiple front defense, more so probably an odd front, if anything, where you can play him at the nose, you can play him as a 5, maybe even a 4-eye. You can play him in a variety of spots, and I think he can be effective. But again, he might be effective as that 2-eye, as that 3 tech as well. So Casey Rogers, Nebraska, probably the guy to watch out for because we're going to circle on their running back here in a second. And I think he could be the guy that maybe makes a couple of stops today against him. So we'll see what happens with Nebraska's defense and Casey Rogers. But we're going to obviously you can add anything there as well, but we'll move over to Illinois in the process.
Yeah, no, with Casey Rogers, I like the versatility. Like you said, he can line up in multiple spots. And that, to me, the old phrase is the more you can do. So the more versatile that you are, the more places I can move you and feel comfortable placing you, whether on the D-line, it helps you secure a spot in the NFL. You know what I mean? Whether it's a depth position, a starter, whatever the case may be, or just a developmental guy, the more places I can place you, it really speaks true to your skill set. So for Casey Rogers, I'm intrigued to kind of watch him today, see where they line him up. And again, this running back that I'm going to be talking about is definitely going to need to know where he is at all times.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, I don't think Illinois has I don't want to say the best offensive line, but they are a talented group. They lose Kendrick Green, but they do have a talented group up front. So again, it's going to be interesting to see how he gets potentially minimized or if he maximizes on any potential openings or weaknesses on that interior of the offensive line. But going over to Illinois, I don't believe these two players are related not on anything I've seen, but Sidney Brown and Chase Brown. We'll go with the running back. That's your guy, running back Chase Brown out of Illinois.
Yeah, listen, all Big Ten third team, for the media, all Big Ten honorable mention from the coaches. Last year, he ran for 100 yards against Nebraska, over 100 yards, I think 2 touchdowns. Ran for his career high of 131 against Rutgers last year on 17 carries. One thing I like about him, he's 5'11", 205. He looks a little, to me, when I'm watching him on tape, he looks a little bigger in the upper body than 205. He has a nice thick frame up top, built well, straight line speed. You rarely see someone catch him and run him down from behind. They use him very well when it comes down to inside and outside zones. He looks like, from what they do with that offense and that run game, it's a lot of zone blocking, and he reads it well, plants his foot, one cut, get upfield, and get downfield as well. And again, he finishes strong, runs with a good pad level, runs behind his pads. I didn't see too much elusiveness in open field. The run is crazy. When I was watching him run, like I said, I watched the actual form of the way that he runs, his style, and it reminded me a lot of Philip Lindsay. Just kind of professional, kind of got, I don't know if he has a track background or not, but very high, tight, everything is just nice and compact. And so I was like, and the same thing. Phil Lindsay isn't a guy that's going to make you miss an open field. And I didn't see that too much from Chase either, but I'm really intrigued to see him. I believe he's a redshirt junior or redshirt senior this year. I'm excited to see him, man, because he's talented. I want to see them get the ball to him in space, throw the ball to him in the short and intermediate game, let him get matched up with some linebackers, because, again, his speed is legit. His play speed, I don't know what he timed in the 40 or anything, but his play speed, which, again, for me, play speed means way more than what you run in the 40. I could care less. Like, what you do inside those lines, man, that's what matters to me, especially at the running back position. And I think for Illinois to win this game, they're going to need a repeat performance from Chase. They're going to need another 100-yard, 2-touchdown type of game, because I do think that Nebraska's coming to play today.
I think you're right. I mean, they've got a lot to prove for Nebraska. I mean, they've had a lot of animosity within the program. It seems like they've got a lot of shade kind of thrown at them with this offseason. I mean, Scott Frost has got a lot of heat on them. So we'll see. I mean, I know the NCAA, I think, is even investigating them. So we'll see obviously what happens, but they've got to go out and prove themselves. And with Chase Brown, I'm really interested to see how the pairing goes with Mike Epstein, right? Like you mentioned, Philip Lindsay. For years, we saw Philip Lindsay paired with Royce Freeman, kind of the same boat here with Chase Brown, having another mouth to feed in the backfield. But when he gets an opportunity, man, like you said, the play speed comes out and he makes an impact. So he could certainly be somebody that goes off for 100+ yards today and a handful of touchdowns even. So we'll see what happens. But my guy for Illinois, Sidney Brown, every single time you watch this defense, number 30, this defensive back is just coming out and he's making plays. And it's impressive. I mean, he had a strong sophomore season in 2019. He had almost 90 tackles. He had 3 interceptions. And then last year, it was a shortened season, obviously, with the Big Ten, but he also battled through injuries. So I think if he can stay healthy, you're talking about a player that's got versatility. He played 3 games last year at safety. He comes down, he can tackle. I think with the versatility is key. When you can play outside at the cornerback spot, you can play inside in the slot, you can play as a dual safety, you could even play as that overhang defender somewhere, and I think be as effective as him because of his physicality. So Sidney Brown, he's from London, Ontario. He played high school football down in Florida. He had a ton of options to go really play in a ton of not, huge D1 schools, but some of those smaller market type schools like in Illinois and like a Missouri and et cetera. But he comes here and he's been a stud, I think. And if he can stay healthy, he can start this season right on track the way that it's supposed to. And we've got a couple of comments here from Mr. Diggs. Let's go. Tailgate time. I'm too old for table breaking time. You're never too old to break a table. Sorry, college OHIO. Get that out of here. Sorry. Get that Ohio State out of here. And then lastly, live football talk. It's all good. Absolutely. And that's what we're going to be doing every single week. We're going to be doing this every Saturday or Sunday, depending on obviously my schedule and DP schedule, but coaching football takes up a lot of time. But going over to Hawaii, UCLA, that's the next game on tap here. And we really went just kind of down the line. And I'm excited about this game because, one, you get Hawaii in that limelight of an afternoon game rather than playing at midnight all the time. We get them at 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're going to finally see some things. And going with Hawaii, you've got a guy that staying on the defensive side of the football, they got a guy here that I think we could potentially be talking about more when we get to the offense or the off season, and that's defensive back Cortez Davis.
Yes, sir. 5'11", 180. One of the first things that's kind of popped out to me, he had for a guy that's 5'11", he's not, he's not over 6 foot. He has long arms for his height. So one thing I noticed about him, he's super aggressive, sticky in coverage. He's ultra competitive. And what I love about him, he has violent hands at the catch point. Whether he's stacked, he's making up space, whatever the case may be. If the ball's there, he locates the ball, he tracks it well, and he fights through the hands of the receivers. Against Romeo Doubs, I believe he only gave up one catch, and that was for 10 yards last year. And everybody knows for Nevada, Romeo Doubs is one of the best. I think from the Mountain West Conference, he's one of the best receivers, and he's one of the fastest, most explosive deep threats in this in the nation and in this draft class potentially. So to be able to hold him down and shut him down for just one catch for 10 yards, that's big. Talking about his ability to cover. So watching that, he started all 8 games last year. He's second all team, all Mountain West. He's literally the team shut down corner. I wonder if he's gonna match up with my guy from UCLA that I'm going to talk about in a moment. But he had a season high 7 tackles, a pass breakup against Boise State. Like I said, looking at him, and one thing I tweeted this out a couple weeks ago. I love to watch DBs. I want to see if they, what kind of attitude and temperament they have. He's talkative. He's got some some trash talk in his game, and I love that. I love the swag. I love this because you have to have that playing on the island, man. As a DB, you have to have that swag. Whether it's even if it's kind of a silent swag, like a Stephon Gilmore. He doesn't talk much, right? But he believes in his game. He has that confidence that I can shut any receiver down, depending on the matchup. So I'm looking for Cortez Davis today. Again, I have a UCLA receiver that I'm hoping to see those two match up a little bit, right? If he's going to be that shutdown corner, let him travel a little bit because my guy does move around a little bit for UCLA. So Cortez Davis, man, like you said, this is a name that we could be hearing and talking about more as we approach April.
No doubt about it. I mean, you mentioned how talkative he is, and I love that. I mean, you love seeing communication. I always say it to any group of kids I coach. Communication is the key to success for any team and really anything in life. So you love seeing guys that can be vocal leaders out there, and I think Davis can certainly do that today against UCLA, who I think is a beatable team. I mean, they've got some offensive players, and we'll jump into those guys next. Brittain Brown, the running back. Honestly, I forgot he transferred from Duke. I remember watching him when he was teamed up with Daniel Jones in like 2017, 2018, watching him, I was like, man, Daniel Jones obviously looked like that prototypical quarterback. But then watching Brittain Brown, I'm like, man, like this guy's pretty solid. He runs inside zone, outside zone pretty well. He's got that natural feel. He had almost 1,000 yards, all purpose yards. And then he kind of got dinged up. And then in 2019, he was like on the Doak Walker Award, like the preseason like candidate list. So I'm like, okay, clearly the NFL or college football is really looking at this guy. And then he ended up getting hurt. He only played 3 games, and then he ends up transferring to UCLA. So he played a little bit last year, but now I think he's got an opportunity here to really become a sure thing starter for an offense that loses a big piece, right? Felton is gone. Dimitri Felton is gone. He went to the NFL. So now you've got an opportunity to be a true number 1 running back. And while maybe the offensive line isn't necessarily the top offensive line, it's not Alabama, right? But he's got an opportunity with a good quarterback, with the receiver that we're going to talk about. Plus you add in Brown. UCLA, they've got a good offense, but I think Brown can be somebody that we talk about as maybe a middle day 2 or maybe a day 3 pick next spring or something. And maybe he goes undrafted. You never know. But again, if he can stay healthy, the skill set is there. He doesn't have necessarily breakaway speed. He's not going to catch 100 passes out of the backfield. But I just love his skill set in a system where you can run with that running back by committee. He fits that role perfectly, and I think he could have a big year out there in the Pac-12. So I'll turn it over to you on Kyle Phillips.
Yeah, Kyle Phillips, led the team in receptions in 2019. I think he was the first freshman to do that since 2001. He's a chain mover. He made the honorable mention for all Pac-12 by the coaches, so he has that respect from his fellow from the fellow coaches in the Pac-12. Knowledgeable when working leverage. He's a slot machine through and through, shifty and savvy route runner. He has a nice it's kind of almost like and it's not it's not because of the skin complexion, but I want to put him to Luka Doncic a little bit. Luka Doncic isn't the most he's not the most athletic, but one thing, if you watch basketball, watch Luka, he has like a kind of a slow dribble where he kind of works you, kind of puts you to sleep a little bit, then he crosses you over and steps back on you, and it's a 40-foot three. So when I'm looking at Kyle Phillips, he has that as well, especially when he's not impeded by press coverage or being jammed at the line of scrimmage. He'll just it's kind of a delayed release. He just kind of walks up on the toes of the DB, gives him a shake at the top of the stem, and then he breaks and he leaves them flat-footed. And it's just the intelligence to know. And it takes confidence in yourself to be able to pull that off as well, because a lot of guys, they want to get in and out of their breaks. They want to get in and out of their routes. But it takes a real confident individual to move at your own pace. Look at Kawhi Leonard in the NBA. Nobody speeds him up. He's not Steph Curry running all over the floor. No, he's at his own pace, at his own movement. He doesn't allow you to make him play faster than he is. And it's the same thing with Phillips. And I love that about him. He's a natural separator. He's got good hands. Like I said, and when you're looking for a guy to come into your offense and help you move the chains on third downs, like I believe it was 2019. I believe he had 10 catches or 10 or 12 catches over 100 yards against Stanford. Completely cooked Stanford's DBs. They had no chance covering him. And DTR, his quarterback, was feeding him, finding him. And he works well in the middle of the field between the hashes, and he can work on the outbreakers. I'm really excited to see him. That's why I want to see if Cortez and him get to match up much at all, because I really believe that Kyle Phillips is going to be the top target in this offense, besides the tight end Doche, I believe I said his name right, who's a stud himself. Like I love him for UCLA, that tight end. So besides him, I think Phillips could be their number one receiver, and that he already has the trust of DTR, and even in a shortened season last year, he led them in receptions again.
Well, before we get into anything else, are you telling me that you butcher names as bad as I do?
Yes. Sometimes.
I don't know. I don't know what the tweet was earlier this week, but
oh no, I remember that tweet. There's no chance I'm saying that.
I can't remember who. I think it was Ben Fennell. He had put something out there basically talking about some player that was out there, and I can't. I think it might have been Arkansas player, and this name was ridiculous. And he puts it out there, and I'm looking at this name, and I was like, "There's no chance in hell."
No chance. No, and absolutely not.
And I find out like, oh, he butchers names too. So we're good there. So it's going to be obviously a fun year of this.
Yes, sir.
But that's UCLA. That's Hawaii. Obviously, there's tons of prospects to pay attention to there. UConn, Fresno State, that's the last game we're going to get into unless you have anything to add. And I don't know if you have anything as far as UConn players go. I don't have anything. I know Ben Fennell, good friend of the show. I know he tweeted out, I think, a video of a UConn player earlier this week. I couldn't find it, but UConn hasn't played a game since 2019. So we have no idea what this team's going to look like offensively, defensively. I can't even imagine how Fresno State feels going into this. Don't know what they're running. Don't know what defense they got, what players they have. So it's a benefit for UConn and us draft guys. It's the first week of the year, so it doesn't really matter that much. But at the same time, it's like, I got nothing. I can look at the roster, but I can't really tell you, hey, this guy's worth looking into because they haven't played games in over a year. So Fresno State, though, they got a guy that I think can be – I don't know. I think he can be pretty solid. I know I mentioned Brittain Brown. I like this player a little bit more, actually, than Brittain Brown out of UCLA, and that's Ronnie Rivers, their running back. I think if you haven't watched him yet, check him out. I remember I got a video clip from 2 years ago of him. He only played 6 games last year, but he did have almost 600 yards. He had 7 or 8 scores. He's got over 110 receptions in his career in the last 3 years. So he can catch passes out of the backfield. I think he's a physical runner. I think he's pretty shifty for a player his size. Now, there's times where he's making his cuts and he's getting lateral and his pad level raises, and I don't really like that. I think he can certainly lower his center of gravity, but he's got kind of that jitterbug mentality that we love to see with some running backs. So I think running through arm tackles and just overall his size, I mean, he's 6'1", 205. So I think he's 5'9". 6'1", 205. And I think overall with his size, he can really be a physical runner, and again can be somebody to reckon with. And Fresno State, I don't think they've got a ton of talent, but Ronnie Rivers certainly is that player to keep tabs on as far as the overall prospect for that game. So you got anything to add as far as the prospects that we've been going over today?
I like Ronnie Rivers a lot. Like you said, nice squatty frame, good compact build. I guess we can call him a super senior. He's been there since 2017. He was a senior last year. He's coming back because of the COVID COVID-19 pandemic eligibility that they allowed prospects to have. So I'm excited to see what he can do today and make a name for himself coming into this draft. Because at the end of the day, to me, I know a lot of people, and I even put that out there on Twitter. A lot of people after the draft for the 2022 draft, they're like, "Oh man, the running back class isn't, it's 2023 you need to worry about." And I'm like, "No, 2022 is a good group. Like through and through is a really good group." Now, of course, it all depends on who decides to declare, who goes back to school. Things can change at any moment once we get closer to the draft. But I really like this group of guys overall, and I think Ronnie Rivers can really make a name for himself. I want to see him catch the ball in the backfield. Anytime I see a guy that's sub 6'2", sub 6'1", whatever the case may be, less than 215, 20 pounds, I want to see you catch the ball and move in space. Like you say, he has that jitterbug in him, that quickness, the foot quickness to set guys up in space and cut off, read and cut well. I want to see him catch the ball and just showcase the more, like you said earlier, the more you can do.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll get into some prospects though that we really like so far throughout the summer, and probably some guys that we'll kind of tee up for next week as well, a little bit more in depth. I'll get to a couple comments though. Mr. Diggs says, "I've only been to Ohio State games 2 or 3 times. You can always tell who's making the NFL." That's true. Even if you watch 3 or 4 games of a prospect, you can kind of tell who has it and who doesn't. You still like to watch as much as you possibly can. Troy Gabrielson says, "Here, not a big college fan." Well, appreciate it, Troy. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for joining us. And yes, an hour and a half until Josh Allen hits the field. Is he actually going to play today? I mean, I don't know.
So I think early in the week they said he was supposed to, and then I think I was watching NFL Network last night. They were talking about the weather, so they're not sure if they're going to let him play because it was supposed to be like a downpour or something like that. So just depends. I'd like to see him play, like to see him get some reps in, just maybe a drive or two, and then rest until for another week of practice, and then we have the NFL season kicking off.
Yeah, well, and I mean, the Panthers did it with Sam Darnold last night as well. So,
and it was a good choice, too. It was a good choice. Get that chemistry, get that rhythm going. Sam looked good.
He did. That Panthers team is going to be good. So, it's going to be fun to watch. Obviously, we can talk some NFL draft, or not NFL, some NFL stuff in a couple of weeks from rookies and everything else when we get to that part of the year. But let's get into some prospects that we really like so far this summer. I'm just going to kick it off. And I'm going to go with the guy. You've already mentioned his name on the show, and it's Romeo Doubs from Nevada. I mean, this dude has got an intriguing skill set with the size too. I mean, he's 6'1.5", 6'2", 210, 215, something like that. And to see that at that size, the way he moves after the catch and how explosive he is, I think is really intriguing. One of the first plays I saw from him was a design wide receiver screen, and he just took off and was off to the races. And I was like, man, you see little 5'8", 5'9" receivers doing that. This guy's 6'2", and I think he can win in all 3 areas of the field, from deep down the field and the short and intermediate areas. So I don't think he's necessarily the best route runner. We're not going to talk about him as a route runner like we would like Chris Olave, but at the same time, that skill set with the explosiveness is very intriguing. Now, I think he can certainly get a little bit more sure-handed, but at the same time, I think he's somebody that, with Carson Strong being under the radar as one of those quarterbacks to keep tabs on, I think Romeo Doubs from a wide receiver position is certainly one of those guys as well.
Oh yeah, I really like Dubs. I want to see him this year. That connection between him and Strong is just ridiculous. It's so good, and I just want to watch for his development this year. Watch to see, because he's got a good release package at the line of scrimmage. But I want to see him, become a better route runner, route salesman, manipulator. I would say. So I'm excited to watch him this year to see where his game has taken him and where he's taken his game throughout the offseason. I think I talked about him when we first did a podcast a couple weeks ago, was Ulysses Bentley, running back from SMU. Explosive, cutty, sharp cuts. I always talk about it. Winning in the alley at the running back position is so important to me, because at the end of the day, your O-line and your fullback or tight ends, whatever, they can do their job. There's always going to be at least one defender that you as a running back have to defeat in the hole, in the alley, and he does that very well. And I follow a lot of players, and followed by a few prospects as well. And I follow him on social media. And one thing I noticed was he's looked like he's added some weight, some muscle, add some build, some muscle to his build, which is good, because then that allows him, because he already runs with a ferocious attitude. And we talked about swag earlier. If you pop on the North Texas tape, they were chirping at him. And one thing about it, you have to know your opponent, know who to talk to. Some guys really thrive off of that, so you kind of got to watch who you talk to. And man, it to the point where he has the footwork, the elusiveness, everything to make you look foolish in open field. But there were times against North Texas where he's like, forget it, I'm just going to run you over. And he just set the tone and just truck stick guys. So, correct, Mr. Diggs. SMU has produced some few good players. And they have, I think they got a 5-star wide receiver recruit that's coming in this year as well. Also, Reggie Roberson, the receiver, is coming back off the knee injury, so keep an eye out on that name. Talk about explosive deep threats. He's one of them. But I really love Ulysses Bentley, and I think he's a guy that and I think he took over midway the season, because I think the running back in front, if I'm not mistaken, the running back in front of him either got hurt or whatever. So he ended up taking over midway. He got close to 1,000 yards. I think he eclipses 1,000 this year. He can catch the ball in the backfield. I'm really excited to see what he can do in that offense this year.
No doubt about it. I mean, and you mentioned Reggie Roberson. I feel like he could be one of the most forgotten players in the country, just with an explosive deep threat. It felt like every time he ran deep, he'd catch everything. It was like, does this guy not drop a ball? Because he catches every damn pass. It's impressive for sure. And SMU for sure is just a team to keep tabs on, because they've got the nasty blue jerseys that say Dallas on it. They got these stud players offensively and even defensively. So they could be sneaky good. I think they're currently ranked. I don't even think we've looked at the rankings yet so far this year. I haven't, but I believe they're ranked. They're up there for sure. I know one team is ranked, and that's Cincinnati. They're ranked relatively high, and they've got my guy, quarterback Desmond Ridder. We always see like this thing every year, right? Who's the quarterback that comes out and really surprises people? And I'll be honest, I think it could be Desmond Ridder. I thought he could have came out last year and been a top 50, top 60 pick, and he's coming back, and I think he could potentially solidify himself as a true first-round pick. I mean, his work ethic off the field is very impressive. First time I've ever seen this, and I tweeted it out before. He was in the middle of a game. They get through the series. They score a touchdown or maybe kick a field goal, whatever. He's on the sidelines. He's got a notebook in his hands, like a notepad. He's taking notes, and he's on the phone, and he's got the headset on all at the same time. He's on the phone up to the quarterback room. He's on the phone, everything with the offensive coordinator. He's got his players around him, and he's writing stuff out. And I'm like, man. And he's got his towel over his head after that, and he's looking at his notes, and he comes out, and whatever was told to him, he either fixed it or whatever, because he went on and played great the rest of the way. And I think just from mobility, the way he can scan the field, I think when you look at that quarterback position, you need those guys that can come out and do a variety of things. We always say versatility for defensive players or this guy or whatever. Well, quarterbacks, they need to be versatile as well, because you can't always just really live and die by standing in the pocket all the time. You have to go out and do different things. So when you see these RPOs and these read options and these design quarterback runs, it's impressive. And I think with Ridder, you get that from the Cincinnati offense. And I think you'll get that this year. So keep tabs on him. If they're going to win football games, I think it's really going to be because of him. Now, they do have some great defensive players as well. Myjai Sanders, my guy, the edge rusher, great length. And then they've got Sauce Gardner, which maybe is the best name in college football, the defensive back, who I don't think's given up a touchdown yet in 2 years. So they've got a very impressive team overall. They could be a sleeper for sure. But I'm going to go with Ridder as one of my favorite prospects coming into this year.
Yeah, I'm a Ridder guy as well. And I even in the I'm gonna talk about quarterback in just a moment, but even in the piece that I just did on Malik Willis, who is the quarterback that I'm gonna discuss, this quarterback class, it's not top heavy like this previous class, right? But at the same time, the two main guys we knew heading into last year were Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. Everybody began to get hot to the name of Trey Lance. Zach Wilson, shined throughout the season and made himself a top 3 pick in the draft. Mac Jones, technically and essentially came out of nowhere because no one really believed that he would win the job over the young kid, Bryce Young, I believe is his name, over at Bama. So there was still dust that needed to settle. And it's the same thing for this class. For me, Malik Willis is one of my favorite guys to study. He's such a fun study to watch. You know what I mean? And playing at Liberty, he transferred from Auburn. And I'm going to be honest with you, hey, go, War Eagle, whatever their chant is. No disrespect to you guys, but I really believe you made a wrong decision picking Bo Nix over, Malik Willis. I think that was a terrible decision. As you see things how they played out right now. Malik Willis, 201 over 200 pounds. Just a rocked up frame, power runner. He's got elusiveness in open field. He's got some sprinter speed to his game as well. Legit burst in that 10-yard window. I'm seeing him pulling away from guys in that 10-yard split, and it's just ridiculous. So, and then his arm talent. Like, it's just out of this world, the type of throws and windows that he could fit the ball into. Yeah. So, he's so fun to watch because when he's on passing the ball, I'm telling you, put on the tape against Virginia Tech. People, the question I always get from a lot of people is, well, how do you factor in pretty much like for somebody playing at a small school, competition? So how do you factor that in, right? Remember Josh Allen, he came out, a lot of people were kind of just digging at him because when they played bigger schools, his teams were outmatched, so they lost. He didn't look the greatest, so forth and so on. And that isn't always a indicator of Josh Allen or the quarterback. It's the situation, you know what I mean? Right. Like if you're playing at Hawaii, and back in the day, you didn't have a lot of 4 or 5 star recruits, and you're going up against Alabama, who's littered with them. Mm-hmm. I mean, what can you do, right? So how do you judge? Like, oh well, he played bad. Well, he's playing against Alabama. Like, we gotta be careful with how we use it. But looking at him against Virginia Tech, his team to me was outmatched. But he was the main cog. He was the key cog to them winning that game. He was the key cog to that offense, putting up the points and the numbers that they put up. So I'm really excited to watch Malik Willis. The second year in Hugh Freeze's offense, and I'm kind of following his development path, watching him work on his game. I really believe the sky's the limit for this kid.
No doubt. I mean, I haven't watched him in depth, and I haven't obviously wrote an article like you have put together on him. And we've got some quarterback articles coming. You've got Malik Willis coming. I've got Matt Corral coming out there. I just recently mentioned Romeo Doubs. I got an article with 3 wide receivers in there from Calvin Austin, Taj Washington, and Doubs. I think both of us are on board with all 3 of these wide receivers, especially Calvin Austin, who's a speedster. But I was going to go to the defensive side real quick, and I'll shut up probably after this, and we'll probably you can obviously add another prospect if you'd like, but we'll probably close up shop. But Kaiir Elam out of Florida is somebody that I'm really intrigued with. I started watching him this morning. I've watched, Ventrell Miller and Brittain Cox and part of that defense, and now I'm watching him. I can't watch all 3 at the same time. I've tried that many times. It just doesn't work. So I'm watching Elam this morning, and I'm like, man, this guy's got really good length. I think he's got pretty good footwork. I think he, whether it's jam or he's in off coverage, I think he does a really good job doing those things and having that skill set. But then I'm seeing like really good patience and closing speed and the way he attacks, and he's playing through the football and playing through the catch point. And I'm like, man, like that's spot on. Like I like seeing that. So I'm really intrigued after watching one game so far. I think as I get into next week, I'll probably talk about him a little bit more. But Florida, they lose a little bit on offense, right? You lose Kadarius Toney, you lose Kyle Trask, but I've mentioned Miller and Cox, and Elam as well. You bring back some players on defense, and I think that could keep them afloat in some football games if their offense can score a couple of points for them. So I'm really intrigued by Kaiir Elam. I don't know where you are on him. I don't know if you've watched him on depth, but I really like him as far as a defensive back in this group so far.
No, I love Elam, man. And the first thing that kind of popped in my mind was Xavier Rhodes. Tall, big, thick frame, long arm, can get physical at the press, in press coverage, at the jam, at the release point, can play off coverage and click and close, can be a force player in the run game and tackle, willing tackler, high IQ as well. Like you said, patience. And that's something you don't see from a lot of corners. Because again, it all comes back to trusting who you are. Shout out to my boy Eric Crocker. Crocker always said I think he tweeted out a little while ago, earlier today, about trusting your speed, trusting who you are. And when you don't trust your own ability, that makes you speed yourself up. You're just kind of out of sorts because you're trying to rush through everything. But when you trust your own technique, your own ability, you can be patient like that. So I really like him, and I think to me, I haven't done my full rankings, but of course, Byron Stanley's number 1. I have Andrew Booth at number 2, and I have Elam at 3 right now.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, like you say, like trusting your patience and stuff like that. Well, it's almost like a linebacker, right? Like Jalen Smith said something during a film study that really stood out to me, slow till you know. And it's almost like Elam has that same mindset. And I don't know if maybe he's going to be more destined to play closer to the box all the time, or maybe he's better suited to switch to his safety position. So he can kind of have that patience over the top where he's not getting pressed vertically as much. But at the same time, like you're right, probably third, fourth, maybe fifth best corner right now in this group. I mean, I haven't watched a ton of corners outside of Stingley and Booth even. So I'm with you. I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily have anybody over him. It's still very early. I wait a pretty long time for the defensive back group. But yeah, Elam is somebody, and I will say this, I'm not going to put him on blast, but somebody reached out to me this morning and was like, yeah, dude, I don't know why people have him listed as a top 100 player. I think Elam is trash, blah, blah, blah. So I don't really know what that person's watching. I'm not going to throw him under the bus here on a live session of Cover One, the NFL Draft podcast. But I was a little shocked, and I was like, well, I don't know. First time I'm watching him, so I'll let you know what I think. So it's encouraging to know that you think highly of him.
Yeah, I really like his game. I need to watch Sauce Gardner. I'll be watching him soon. And this, like I tweeted out many times, this defensive class is loaded.
Defensive tackle, maybe not so much.
Yeah, defensive tackle, yeah. That's the one spot. It's shallow.
It's a pretty good group, though. I mean, I think from edge rushers, you get some really talented players from Kayvon Thibodeau to Nick Bonito to Isaiah Thomas, who I really like. I don't think a lot of people are on board with him out of Oklahoma.
Yep. Nick Bonito.
Yep.
George Karlaftis going to be my next piece that I'll be working on.
Aiden Hutchinson, who's a freak.
Yes, he's returning.
He's what, the number 1 or number 2 freak on Bruce Feldman's list.
He's up there. He's up there. So this class overall, man, like I said, the interior D line and D tackle is definitely the kind of weaker spot, which was the same thing last year too. It was the same situation. But looking at the rest of the linebacker has good talent and depth. Like I said, from looking at overall at the cornerback list, same thing. Safeties, like I'm stumbling upon so many safeties in this class, man, that fit so many different types and roles. I'm just excited for this class overall.
No doubt about it. And I mean, we'll get more into it as the weeks go on, especially next week with a bigger schedule in front of us. We'll probably be picking 3-4 games a piece and just talking prospects. And that's what we're going to be doing for a while. Maybe at some point during the middle of the week, maybe it's a Monday night, before Monday Night Football or something. Maybe we break down some film on a prospect or something like that. We're going to be doing tons of stuff here for sure. We're going to have guests. We're going to be giving out picks. We're going to be doing all that. I don't know, man. It's going to be tons of fun. It's really whatever the week brings us. And you guys, of course, can find it all right here on YouTube, the Cover One YouTube page. You can find it on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, really wherever you get your podcast. You can subscribe, rate, and review to the Cover One NFL Draft Podcast. And of course, all of our shows are presented by Underdog Fantasy. Again, the most innovative platform in the fantasy market. New users, they receive a free $25 when using the promo code Cover1. So don't wait around until your draft is over to figure out who the sleeper is. Go do it now. Sign up and find out what it is. Use the Cover1 promo code, get the free $25 and win your fantasy league today. So DP, my man, what else? You got anything left for me as we close up shop?
Man, listen, like I said, this first week, after we get through the weekend, is a loaded schedule of college football games. And for everyone, if you haven't checked it out, I dropped my piece on Malik Willis this morning. So go to cover1.net and check that out. Because I'm really excited for this young man. But I will have some pieces coming up, kind of highlighting prospects for these next couple games before we get back to next Saturday for technically the full week 1 slate. So definitely tune in with us, guys.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, you guys can find us on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft, at DP_NFL. Be sure to smash the follow button, hit the like button, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, the whole 9. Until next week for officially week 1 of college football, this has been week 0. This has been Cover 1, the NFL Draft Podcast. Until next time, we'll see you. We're out.